Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another rules breakdown. This time we're going to be looking at 7th Sea, which came out from the Alderac Entertainment Group in 1999. Now this is going to be very similar to the video I did about a year ago, I think now, on Legend of the Five Rings, as they use the same rule system. But I have to say, I think that 7th Sea presents them a lot better. There's some slight modifications to the rules, but I think they use the time between Legend of the Five Rings coming out to learn a few lessons on how to present them in a much easier fashion. So I like them a lot. Now, as usual, I need a sample character, and I have used off page 170 of the Player's Handbook the sample pirate. Why have I chosen this one? Because it's a swashbuckling game, and using a pirate just kind of seemed right. Anyway, let's go over and have a look at the rules of 7th Sea. And so skills. Well, skills are based on your traits. So we can see the sample character here has a brawn of 2, a finesse of 3, wits of 2, resolve of 3, and a panache of 2. So let's say he's doing something physical. He's climbing the rigging on his ship. So it's going to be brawn based. But it's up to you to describe how it's happening. So it's possible you could be using one of the other traits. But brawn seems applicable for climbing. So he's got brawn of 2, so we're rolling 2 dice. However, he's also got a skill here of climbing 2, which adds to that. However, you can never be allowed to use for success more than your trait worth of dice. So in this case, we'll be rolling 4 dice, 2 for the trait, 2 for the skill. But we're only allowed to use 2 of those. So we're rolling 4 dice and we'll be discarding 2 which aren't acceptable to us. So probably the 2 that roll low. So for example here, we're rolling our 4 dice, we throw, so we get 2 8s, a 2 and a 1. So we get rid of the 2 and the 1. We've got 2 8s, so we've got 16, which against the standard difficulty of 15 is a success. So he succeeds in climbing the rigging. It's also worth bearing in mind that if you roll a 10 in any skill roll, this doesn't count in initiative. But in any skill roll, it explodes. So if you roll a 10, you get to re-roll it and add it. So the dice that you're keeping for the 10 can be much, much higher because it will keep exploding if you keep rolling 10s. So you can get a spectacular results if you're lucky enough. We've also got contested rolls here. So target number for a contested roll is equal to the opposed trait times 5. So let's say he's arm wrestling himself. So his brawn is 2, so he'll be rolling 2 dice. But his target number will be 10 because it's 2 times 5. However, the other person also has to roll. If only one contestant rolls successfully, opposing trait times 5, he succeeds and his opponent fails. If both roll successful, the one who rolled higher wins. So he's arm wrestling himself. He has a target number of 10. He gets 8, so fails. His opponent also has a target number of 10. They get an 8 and fail, so both of them fail, so it doesn't work. But carrying on, he gets 10, so succeeds. His opponent gets 14, which is higher, so his opponent wins that time. It's also worth bearing in mind, if we flick over to page 19, raises. Before you roll your dice, you can increase the target number by 5 to get a raise, which allows you to add some extra frill to what you've done. So if you're bargaining with somebody, you get to get the price much cheaper. If you're climbing the rigging, then you're carrying a lantern in your hand. If you're arm wrestling, then you manage to beat them in an absolutely fantastic fashion. People are very impressed by you. Rather than just winning, you've absolutely overpowered them. But you need to include the raise, so the target number goes up by 5. And if you succeed in that, you get the standard success, but you also get whatever you wanted as your raise. And so initiative, well, it's dealt with on page 20. And it's a matter of rolling your hero's panache. You roll a number of dice equal to that. So looking at our character, he has a panache of 2. So 2d10 we throw. And he gets 7, which means that he goes before anybody who got 6 or lower, after anybody who got 8 or higher. However, you also spend the dice for your number of actions. So he'll be getting 2 actions. he'll be spending his highest dice first. So his second action will go at 2 after anybody who got 3 or higher, before anybody who got 1. So while you get a number of different actions, the order which you can go in that changes each round as you take your highest dice round away each action. So it's not a matter of just deciding who acts and works a sequence and going round and round until nobody has any actions left. It can change every single action depending on what the total remaining is. And so attacks. Well, attacks are dealt with on page 20, attack and defense rolls. Any character, hero or villain, who attacks another is called the attacker. Any character who is being attacked is called the defender. In order for an attacker to hit a defender, must roll against the defender's target number to be hit. Target number to be hit is 5 plus defense stack times 5. Defense stacks are listed in the box text below. So, we've got defense stacks here. Now, the basic one is footwork. So how much you move around in combat, how difficult it is to hit you. But because this is a game of swashbuckling and action, we've also got parrying, balance, swinging, and leaping. Now these are used, when swinging, when leaping, overriding footwork, etc. But because we're just doing a basic one, we'll just use footwork. So the shantyman we're using has a footwork of 3. So 3 times 5 is 15, plus 5 is 20. So the attacker is going to need to roll 20 to hit. Now we use as a stat finesse, and we'll say he's using his knife. So he's got attack 3. So rolling 6 dice, but dropping the 3, and we're needing to beat 20. So clear, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're keeping the top 3. So we've got a 10, a 9, 19, and another 9, so 28. So we've succeeded by beating the 20. So he hits his target. And so damage. Well, damage is explained also on page 21. All weapons have a damage value. And it explains the 2 keep 2, or 2k2 type of damage. Anyway, on the next page we have a weapons table. And the knife is 1k2. So you roll 1 dice but keep 2. How does that make sense? Because you're adding your brawn. So we look at the character, his brawn is 2. So we're adding that. So we're rolling 3 dice, keeping 2. So 1, 2, 3, keeping the top 2 of them. So we're doing 11 points of damage because we're just dropping that 1. And health. Well, health is dealt with wounds and dramatic wounds. So if we look at the character sheet, we can see that he has no health stat, he has no hit points. It's because these are dealt with wounds. So the amount of damage he took, 11 points there, is dealt as flesh wounds. And every time he receives wounds, he needs to make a brawn roll against the target number of that. So he'd received 11, his brawn is 2, so we're going to throw 2d10. He gets 12, which is over the 11, so that's fine. The next time he receives wounds, they add to that, so his flesh wounds will keep going up. However, if he rolls and fails, then the flesh wounds are wiped out, but he receives a dramatic wound instead. And with firearms, every 10 points you miss that roll by, you take an additional dramatic wound. So firearms can be quite more deadly, adding up. Now, when you receive an amount of dramatic wounds equal to your resolve, so in his case 3, none of your dice explode except drama dice. So you lose that ability to roll really, really high. Just a slight disadvantage. There's no subtraction of ordinary dice or anything like that. It's just that your dice no longer explode. When your dramatic wounds equal to your resolve times 2, so 6 points in this character's, you drop unconscious. You're out of the combat. And because of the dramatic way this story is told, then you probably wake up in a dungeon unless your friends save the day and they can revive you. And flesh wounds clear away between combats because they're just nicks and scrapes and things, but dramatic wounds last longer. And advancement. Well, we're way back further in the book. We're into page 191. After being down in the 20s for so long, we're way back towards the back of the book. You get your experience, probably about 1 to 5 per player per game session. You can buy a new skill. It costs 10 points. You can buy a new background for 3, 6, or 9 for a 1, 2, or 3 point background. You can raise a knack, which costs double the point you're moving it to. So if you're increasing a knack from 2 to 3, you spend 6 experience points because it's double the 3 that you're going to. You can raise a trait, which is 5 times the rank you want to increase the trait to. So if you're increasing your trait from 2 to 3, you are spending 15 points of experience on it. And so that's 7th Sea. It's a very fun, interesting system. The raises especially can make combat quite interesting, where you can add a lot of dramatic flair to what your character's doing as you swing around the room using different traits for your defense, etc., etc. Also, I didn't mention that the raises in combat can be used to do called shots. So instead of doing damage, you can hit somebody's hand to knock their weapon out of their hand, using the raise to be very dramatic and stop them fighting back. But anyway, I think I've been wittering on for quite long enough as usual, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.